The screen casts a sickly blue glow across Sarah's face. It's 4:17 a.m. on a Tuesday in October, and her apartment in Chicago's West Loop is silent except for the hum of her laptop fan. 3 screens blaze in the darkness. On the left, a half-written marketing report for her remote job. In the center, 23 browser tabs are open. Best nootropics for Focus 2025. AI prompt engineering for blog posts. Can you outsource coding homework? On the right, a muted webinar plays something about leveraging blockchain for personal branding. Her coffee went cold 3 hours ago. She rubs her eyes, feeling a gritty dryness that's become as familiar as her own breath. On the floor by her desk, a sad-looking succulent sits in a trendy geometric pot. It's been dead for weeks. Sarah hasn't had the time or the mental energy to throw it away. This is her deep work time. At least that's what the productivity guru she paid $99 to follow on a secret Discord server calls it. She's technically productive. She's moving pixels and words from one place to another. But if you asked her what she actually built today, her mind would go blank. A hollow feeling sits in her stomach, a constant companion. It's the feeling of running faster and faster on a treadmill that's pointed at a wall. Let's rewind just a few hours. Last night, Sarah spent $47 on a subscription to a new app called Synapse. It promised to read any article or textbook and then answer essay questions in your own writing style. She felt a jolt of guilty excitement. This is it. The hack that finally frees up my time. She told herself she'd use the extra time to learn for real. She's told herself that for years. The sound of a Slack notification ping makes her jump. It's from her manager Mark on the East Coast. Sarah, need those Q4 projections on my desk by 7 a.m. your time. Let's move. The message is cold, efficient. It's 4:22 a.m. She has 2.5 hours. Her heart starts thumping against her ribs, a panicked drumbeat. She opens the data files. The numbers swim. She can't focus. She opens another tab and types, how to analyze sales data fast. This has been her life for the past 5 years. Since graduating from a good, but not famous, state university, she's been hustling. She's done every online certification that trends on LinkedIn. She's tried every smart drug she can legally buy, leaving her jittery and forgetful. She speaks in the jargon of optimization, leveraging synergies, paradigm shifts, disruptive innovation, but secretly she feels like a fraud. A cardboard cutout of a competent professional, propped up by an army of digital shortcuts that could fail her at any moment. The room smells like stale coffee and the faint electric odor of overheated electronics. Outside her window, the city lights of Chicago blink, indifferent. A lone car hisses by on wet pavement, its sound swallowed by the double-paned glass of her high-rise building. She is connected to the entire world through fiber optic cables, and she has never felt more alone. Here's a question that might make you uncomfortable. What if everything you've been taught about working smart is a lie? Not a small lie, but a big, shiny, attractive lie designed to keep you perpetually busy, perpetually anxious, and perpetually average? Sarah stares at the blinking cursor on her blank document. Her fingers are poised over the keyboard, but they're frozen. A memory flashes, sharp and clear. She's 16 in her high school library. She's writing a paper on the Great Gatsby . The sun is streaming through the window, warming her back. Her notebook is a mess of arrows, circled quotes, and her own messy thoughts in the margins. It was hard, it took hours. But when she handed it in, she knew every single argument was hers. She can't remember the last time she felt that way about her own work. The lie Sarah believes, the one so many of us believe, is that our value is defined by our output. The volume, the speed, the sheer amount of stuff we can produce, so we look for levers. We look for hacks. We try to cheat the system of hard work because hard work feels slow, and slow feels like failure in a world that only sees results. She minimizes her report. Almost without thinking, her fingers type a new search. Ivy League Student Productivity Secrets 2025. The results load. There's the usual stuff. But then she sees a headline from The Atlantic *, dated just last week. Asterisk asterisk. The Purge, Ivy League Consortium bans 7 efficiency hacks ahead of fall semester. Asterisk asterisk. She clicks. The article loads. She reads, her tired eyes scanning faster. It talks about a quiet meeting in early September 2025. Deans from 8 of the most prestigious universities in the world, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, Penn, Brown, Dartmouth, Cornell, sat down together. They weren't meeting about tuition or research. They were meeting about a silent crisis in their classrooms. Students were turning in flawless code they couldn't explain, impeccable essays that contained zero original thought. They were simulating genius without developing an ounce of true understanding. So they issued a joint internal ban. Not on hard work, but on the very shortcuts promising to replace it. The first item on the ban list makes Sarah's breath catch in her throat. It was the use of asterisk asterisk automated first draft generators. Asterisk asterisk, not just the obvious AI essay bots, but a whole category of tools designed to skip the messy, frustrating, essential step of starting with your own blank page. The article quoted the dean of Harvard College. She said, "We are not in the business of teaching students how to asterisk simulate asterisk competency. We are in the business of asterisk forging asterisk it. These tools are like taking a helicopter to the top of Mount Everest. You get the view, but you miss the climb. And the climb is where you build the lungs, the legs, and the heart to survive at that altitude. Without the climb, the next mountain will destroy you." A 2025 study from Stanford was cited. It found that students who regularly used AI to generate first drafts showed a 47% decrease in their own ability to construct a complex argument from scratch within just 3 months, 47%. Their brains quite literally lost the muscle. Sarah sits back. The blue glow of the screen paints her face. The cold, hollow feeling in her stomach twists into something new. It's not just anxiety, it's a spark of recognition. A terrifying question forms in the silence of her pre-dawn apartment. What if the very tools she's been using to get ahead are the very things holding her back? What if she's been taking the helicopter, and her career muscles, her real ability to think, to create, to solve have been wasting away all this time? She looks at the dead succulent. She looks at her 3 glowing screens. She looks at the blank document waiting for her Q4 projections. The clock now reads 4:48 am. She has a choice. A terrifying, simple choice. The silence in Sarah's apartment after reading that article was louder than any notification ping. The hum of her laptop fan sounded like a distant alarm. She looked at her hands, resting on the keyboard. For years, they'd been trained to react to click, to copy, to paste, to prompt. But what were they trained to actually asterisk create asterisk? Let's give that feeling a name. That cold, hollow twist in her stomach when she thinks about her own work. It's not laziness. Sarah works harder than almost anyone she knows. She's the first to sign up for the extra project, the late-night brainstorming session. No, the villain here is much sneakier. It's a quiet, persistent belief she picked up somewhere along the way, probably in the frantic final years of college. The belief that asterisk asterisk efficiency equals worth asterisk asterisk, that her value as a person, as a professional, is a simple math equation, output divided by time. The higher the number, the more valuable she is. So, of course, she became a master of appearing efficient. Her calendar was a rainbow-colored block of back-to-back Zoom calls, a performance of importance. Her project management tools were pristine, filled with tasks she'd expertly delegate or automate. Her LinkedIn was a highlight reel of completed certificates and buzzwords. From the outside, it was a gleaming skyscraper of productivity. But inside? If you walked through the front door of that beautiful building, you'd find empty hallways, dusty rooms, a foundation that shook when the wind picked up. That's the identity trap. You become a hack seeker. Your entire mission is to find the next shortcut, the next life-changing app, the next secret method that will finally make you feel solid, real, but the search itself keeps you hollow. Let me tell you about a guy named David. This is a true story, though I've changed his name. David was a synthetic student at a top-tier tech university on the West Coast. From 2022 to 2024, He engineered the perfect shortcut-driven education. He used AI to generate unique discussion posts that sounded just human enough. For his computer science assignments, he'd find a talented coder in another country on a freelance site, pay them $50, and get flawless code delivered in 24 hours. He even used a complex VPN setup and screen sharing software so a tutor could take his online proctored exams for him. His GPA was a shimmering 3.92. He graduated with honors. He had a portfolio of projects that made recruiters' eyes light up. In the spring of 2025, he landed a coveted software engineering internship at a famous big tech company in Seattle. The starting pay was more than his parents made combined. He'd hacked the system, he'd won. His first week was orientation, free snacks, sleek offices, inspiring talks. It was glorious. Week 2, his team lead gave him his first real task, a small bug fix in a piece of code that handled user logins. It should have taken a few hours. David looked at the code. It was dense, complex, and utterly unfamiliar. A slow, cold sweat began to prickle at the back of his neck. He realized he didn't know how to even begin tracing the problem. The logic was a foreign language. He spent 3 days in a panic, trying to secretly outsource the fix, but the company's security was too tight. He tried to use an AI helper, but it couldn't understand the company's specific architecture. On the morning of the 4th day, his team lead, a kind woman named Priya, stopped by his desk. "How's it coming along, David? Hit any snags?" He stammered. He tried to talk around the problem, using fancy terms he'd memorized from his outsourced projects. Priya listened patiently, then she pulled up a chair. "Can you walk me through your thought process?" she asked. "Show me how you're approaching the debug." The silence that followed was the loudest sound of David's life. It was a physical pressure in the room. His mouth was dry, his mind was a white, blank screen. He couldn't T-point to a single line of code and explain why it was there. The beautiful facade of his skyscraper vanished in an instant, and Priya was staring right at the empty, shaking foundation.
Have you ever felt like you're just treading water at work? You're doing the bare minimum to get by, but deep down, you know you're not really growing. You see new technologies, new methods, new ideas popping up all around you, but you just stick to what you know. If that sounds familiar, you might be accumulating something called competence debt. So, what is competence debt? Imagine it like financial debt. When you take out a loan, you get a short-term benefit, but you have to pay it back later with interest. Competence debt is similar. It's the gap that forms between what you know now and what you should know to stay effective and relevant in your field. You take a shortcut today, maybe by using an old familiar tool instead of learning a new, more efficient one. In the short term, you save time. But over the long term, that gap widens. The interest you pay is stress, missed opportunities, and the feeling of being left behind. I remember when I first started my career, I was eager to learn everything. But after a few years, I got comfortable. I had my routine, my set of skills, and things were going okay. Then, a new project came up that required a software I'd never used. My colleagues who had been keeping up with industry trends jumped on it, excited for the challenge. I, on the other hand, felt a wave of panic. I had to scramble, working late nights just to catch up on the basics. That was my wake-up call. I had been accumulating competence debt without even realizing it, and the bill had just come due. This isn't just about technical skills. It can be about soft skills, too. Maybe you avoid difficult conversations, so your communication skills stagnate. Maybe you shy away from leadership opportunities, so your management abilities never develop. Every time we choose comfort over growth, we add a little more to our competence debt. The scary part is that it compounds. The more you fall behind, the harder it is to catch up. That small gap can turn into a huge chasm, and suddenly you feel like an imposter in your own career. You start to doubt your abilities, your confidence takes a hit, and your job, which you once enjoyed, becomes a source of anxiety. It's a vicious cycle. The more incompetent you feel, the less motivated you are to learn, which only increases your debt. So how do we break free from this cycle? How do we start paying down our competence debt and invest in our future selves? It's not about making a massive, drastic change overnight. It's about small, consistent actions. First, you need to conduct a personal audit. Be honest with yourself. Where are the gaps in your knowledge? What skills are becoming essential in your industry that you haven't mastered yet? Look at job descriptions for roles you aspire to. What are the requirements? This isn't to make you feel bad. It's to create a map. You can't get to your destination if you don't know where you're starting from. Once you have your map, it's time to create a learning plan. But here's the key. Make it manageable. Don't say, I'm going to become an expert in AI this month. That's overwhelming and sets you up for failure. Instead, commit to something small. Maybe it's, I will spend 15 minutes every day learning Python. Or, I will read one industry article during my lunch break. I like to use the concept of micro-learning. Instead of blocking out the huge chunks of time, which most of us don't have, find those small pockets in your day. Waiting for your coffee to brew? Watch a quick tutorial. On your commute, listen to an educational podcast. These small, consistent deposits into your knowledge bank will start to pay down your competence debt. Another powerful strategy is to learn by doing. Reading about a skill is one thing, but applying it is where the real growth happens. If you want to get better at public speaking, join a local Toastmasters club or volunteer to present at the next team meeting. If you want to learn a new coding language, start a small personal project. It doesn't have to be perfect. The goal is to get your hands dirty and move from passive consumption to active creation. This brings me to my next point. Embrace the beginner's mindset. It's okay to not know things. It's okay to be bad at something when you're just starting. So many of us are afraid to look incompetent that we never try anything new. We have to let go of that fear. Ask questions. Seek out mentors. Be the person in the room who isn't afraid to say, I don't understand. Can you explain that again? True competence isn't about knowing everything. It's about having the humility and curiosity to always be learning. Think of it like going to the gym. You wouldn't expect to lift the heaviest weights on your first day. You start small. You're probably a little sore, but you keep showing up, and over time, you get stronger. Self-improvement is the exact same. Consistency is more important than intensity. A little bit of effort every day is far more effective than a massive, one-time cram session. Let's also talk about the environment you create for yourself. Surround yourself with people who inspire you to grow. Follow thought leaders in your field on social media. Join online communities or local meetups. When you're part of a community of learners, the motivation becomes contagious. You'll discover new resources, get different perspectives, and find support when you're feeling stuck. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. I'm too busy. I have a family, a demanding job. I just don't have the time. And I get that. But I want you to reframe that thought. It's not about finding time. It's about making time. What if you traded 30 minutes of scrolling through social media for 30 minutes of an online course? What if you woke up 20 minutes earlier to read? We often have more time than we think, but we're not always intentional with how we use it. Paying down your competence debt isn't a luxury. It's a necessity for a long, fulfilling career. It's an investment in your future security and happiness. Let's recap the steps. 1. Acknowledge and audit your competence debt. Identify your knowledge gaps honestly. 2. Create a manageable learning plan. Think small, consistent actions. 15 minutes a day is a great start. 3. Learn by doing. Apply what you're learning to real-world projects. 4. Embrace the beginner's mindset. Let go of the fear of looking foolish and ask for help. And 5. Curate your environment. Surround yourself with people and resources that encourage growth. The journey of paying down your competence debt is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be days when you feel unmotivated. There will be times when you feel like you're not making any progress. That's normal. The important thing is to just keep going. Every small step you take is a victory. Every new thing you learn is a payment made toward the more competent, confident, and capable you. You're not just avoiding future problems. You're actively building a better future for yourself. Start today. What is one small thing you can do right now to invest in your competence? Maybe it's signing up for a newsletter, downloading a language app, or just bookmarking a video tutorial for later. Take that first small step. You'll thank yourself for it later. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, give it a like and consider subscribing for more content on personal and professional growth. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's one area where you're looking to pay down your competence debt? Let's support each other. See you in the next video. Okay, she whispered to the empty room. 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. This was the blank page protocol, the direct opposite of the first banned hack. No machine between her brain and the problem. Just her, the paper, and the terrifying silence of her own thoughts. The resistance was immediate and physical. It started as an itch between her shoulder blades. Her mind was a frantic squirrel. She looked at the blank page. It was so blank. On a computer, a blank document felt temporary, ready to be filled. This paper felt permanent. Whatever she put here would be messy. It would be wrong. There would be cross-outs. It would be evidence of her struggle. She took a deep, shuddering breath. She forced her hand to move. At the top of the page, she wrote in clumsy, block letters, Q4 projections, Sarah's thoughts, underlining it twice. Then she just started writing the first thing that came into her head. Not in sentences, not in bullet points, just a messy brain dump. Her handwriting was awful. The letters were uneven, crammed together. She pressed too hard, leaving ghostly impressions on the next page. She circled "Why?" so fiercely she almost tore the paper. This felt terrible. It felt slow. It felt stupid. But she kept going. The timer on her phone, set for 10 minutes, ticked silently. She wrote down numbers she remembered. She drew a ridiculous, lopsided chart. She wrote a question. Is the problem the product, or how we're selling it? She didn't know the answer. That was the point. She was admitting she didn't know. About 6 minutes in, something shifted. The frantic itch in her back began to fade. The noise in her head settled from a scream to a murmur. The physical act of writing was grounding her. She wasn't just consuming information, she was wrestling with it. And in the middle of that messy wrestling match, a connection sparked. She looked at her pathetic chart. She looked at her note about the Johnson account. And then in the margin, away from all the other clutter, she wrote 3 words, circled them, and drew an arrow. Not lead volume, she wrote, lead confidence. It wasn't a full idea. It wasn't a solution. It was a tiny, fragile hypothesis. This was a nuance no AI would have dug up from her raw data. It came from her memory of a passing comment in a Slack thread 2 months ago, from a feeling she'd ignored. It was a truly human insight, born from the friction of her own mind grinding against the problem. The timer buzzed, a gentle vibration on the desk. The 10 minutes were up. Sarah looked down at the page. It was a disaster zone of ink. But in the center of that mess was her little circled phrase, lead confidence. It was hers. She had built it, from scratch, in the silence. She slowly turned her chair back to her computer. The screens glowed back to life. The report document was still blank, the cursor still blinking, but she didn't feel the same panic. She had a starting point, a real one. She picked up her pen again. This is the moment. This is the exact point where 95% of people go back. The discomfort is too high. The old way is too easy, too familiar. They see the mess on the paper, compare it to the polished empty document on the screen, and they choose the facade. They spin back to the keyboard, open the AI, and let the helicopter take them to the top of the mountain. They never build the climbing muscles. Sarah's hand hovered over the mouse. She could still do it. She could still generate that draft, and have it done with time to spare. Instead, she looked at her messy legal pad. She took a new deep breath. This one didn't shudder. It was full. It filled her lungs. She clicked on the document and she began to type, not from a prompt, but from her heart. She started writing. This quarter's analysis suggests our primary challenge isn't the quantity of leads, but the quality of confidence our sales team has in the new product's differentiators. The words weren't perfect. They came slower than an AI's, but each one was connected to a thought she had actually had. Each sentence had a root in that messy, beautiful, human scribble on the yellow paper. Remember this feeling, if you ever try this. The feeling of your hand aching from writing, the smell of the paper, the frustrating silence before the idea comes, the slight surprise when a connection forms from the fog of your own mind. This isn't the feeling of finishing. This is the feeling of beginning. This is the feeling of building a real skill. It's clumsy, it's slow, it's deeply, profoundly human. You're not in the 95% anymore. You're in the 5%. You've made that first crack in the facade. You've chosen to climb, even though you can't see the path yet, even though your legs are weak, and even though the easy way out is sitting right there. Think about Sarah. She's been there. She just spent hours crafting something real, something that was truly hers. Engines running, offering you a free ride. Instead of copying and pasting, instead of just finding a template, she built a report from the ground up, based on her own thinking. At 6:58 a.m., as she finally hit send, her body was tired, but her mind was crystal clear. For the first time, she didn't feel that usual mix of relief and guilt. She felt a quiet, steady hum of ownership. It was hers. As the sun came up, painting the sky in beautiful stripes of orange and gray, she looked at a dead plant on her floor. Before, it was a symbol of her failure and neglect. But now, she saw it differently. It was just a simple, fixable thing. She picked it up, threw the old dead plant away, and was left with an empty pot. A pot that could hold something new. She had won a small victory, but a new, more frightening question whispered in the morning light. You've built one real brick. What do you do tomorrow when the whole world, your inbox, your routines, your own old habits, tries to force you back into that hollow, empty way of working? That quiet confidence Sarah felt. It lasted about as long as her first cup of coffee. By 9:15 a.m., her inbox was a battlefield. A client was upset. A teammate needed her input ASAP. Her calendar was pinging with reminders for back-to-back meetings. The frantic energy of the workday was like a tide, trying to sweep her right back to her old habits, multitasking, quick fixes, and pasting together answers from old documents. This is the daily war. It isn't fought once in some grand, heroic moment at 5 a.m. It's fought in 100 tiny moments before you even have lunch. It's the choice you make when the pressure is on and the old easy hollow ways are so tempting. Sarah knew that one small win wasn't enough. She needed a new system, not another productivity app to download, but a set of simple physical rules to protect that tiny spark of authentic work inside her. She called it her forged foundation system. It wasn't fancy. In fact, it was almost stubbornly simple. Let's break it down, because these 5 rules could change everything for you, too. First, rule number 1. The analog spark. This is a game changer. Every single task, no matter how small, had to start away from a screen. Before answering a complex email, she'd jot down 3 bullet points on a sticky note. Before jumping into a meeting, she'd write her one main goal for it on a fresh page in her notebook. The physical feeling of the paper, the deliberate slowness of her hand moving across the page, became her anchor. It was her personal ban on letting a machine create her first draft. It forced her to think first. Next, rule number 2. The focused burst. Sarah found an old lime green plastic kitchen timer in a drawer. She dusted it off, and it became her most powerful tool. For any important work, she would set it for 25 minutes. During that time, it was one screen, one application. Her phone went into a drawer in another room. The loud, definitive click, click, click as she wound the timer became her starting pistol, and the harsh, old-fashioned brrring at the end was a release. She found that her brain, knowing it only had to focus for that short, protected burst, stopped fighting her so much. It's like telling your mind, hey, just give me 25 minutes, that's all I ask. And it usually complies. Then came rule number 3, the curated input. This is about consumption. Sarah realized she was constantly consuming information, but none of it was actually sinking in. It was like trying to drink from a fire hose. So she scheduled it. For every hour of output she planned, she scheduled 30 minutes of deliberate, high-quality input. But here was the key. It couldn't be skimming random articles or watching junk food content online. She chose one thing, one long-form article from a serious publication, one chapter from a physical book related to her work. She'd read it slowly with a pencil in hand, underlining key phrases and putting question marks in the margins. It felt like giving her brain a nourishing, high-protein meal instead of endless, sugary snacks that leave you feeling empty. Rule number 4 is the one that felt the strangest, but it might be the most powerful. The embodied review. After a learning session or at the end of her workday, she would go for a 15-minute walk. No headphones, no phone, just her and the streets. As she walked, she would try to explain out loud in a whisper what she had just learned or worked on. Okay, so the main point is that trust isn't built by just making promises, but by being transparent about the process. She'd sometimes lose her train of thought, start over, and then suddenly a connection would click. The physical rhythm of her footsteps on the pavement seemed to unlock a different part of her mind. The cool air on her face made the ideas feel clearer, more solid. Moving your body moves your mind. Finally, we have rule number 5, the integrity log. This was the most important rule of all. It was her accountability partner. Every night, just before bed, she'd open a simple, cheap notebook. At the top of the page, she'd write the date. And then she'd write just one sentence. Not about what she completed, but about what she built authentically. Some days, it was easy. October 22nd, built the proposal structure from my own sticky note outline. But other days, it was harder. October 25th, felt lost on the analytics, but resisted Googling for a template and just listed my own questions instead. This log wasn't about tracking productivity. It was about tracking integrity. It was a daily reminder that she was building something real, brick by brick, even on the days when it felt small. These 5 rules, the analog spark, the focused burst, the curated input, the embodied review, and the integrity log, became Sarah's new foundation. They weren't about working harder. They were about working deeper. They created a protective barrier around her focus, allowing her to build something of true value, day after day. They allowed her to win the tiny battles, and over time, to win the war against hollow work. So, what about you? Which of these rules resonates with you the most? Maybe you can start with just one. Grab a sticky note for your next big task. Find an old kitchen timer and try one 25-minute burst of pure focus. Go for a walk, without your phone, and just think. Start an integrity log tonight. You don't have to do it all at once. Just lay one real brick. The journey out of the 95% and into the 5% isn't a leap. It's a series of small, deliberate, authentic steps. You've already decided to climb. Now here are the handholds. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments which rule you're going to try first. Let's build something real together.
She didn't tell anyone about her system. It felt too fragile, too personal, but a funny thing started to happen. The visual evidence stacked up. On her desk, the stack of used legal pads grew, filled with her messy handwriting. The kitchen timer sat proudly next to her laptop, a bright green Sentinel. Her bookshelf began to hold books with cracked spines and penciled notes, not just decorative spines. And then, inevitably, came the setback. It was a Thursday. She had a major client presentation at 3 p.m. Her morning was chaos, a family text thread blowing up about holiday plans, a last-minute data request from her boss. She broke all her rules. She multitasked. She skimmed. She felt the old, buzzing anxiety return. She pasted together slides from 3 old decks, her heart sinking as she did it. The presentation was fine. It was acceptable. The client didn't complain. But as she clicked through the slides, she heard her own voice sound flat, unconvincing. She was performing, not explaining. She knew the facade was back. That night she stared at her integrity log. The blank page accused her. Her hand felt heavy. She could have skipped it, but she made herself pick up the pen. She wrote, October 30th, relapsed, gave a hollow presentation. It felt awful. Writing it down didn't feel like failure. It felt like honesty, and honesty, she realized, was the compass. The system wasn't for perfect days. It was the rails you grabbed to pull the train back on the track after it had derailed. The next morning, she started again, analog spark, focused burst. The simple physical rituals were a form of self-forgiveness. This is where doing it alone almost broke her. The loneliness of the climb was real. She missed the buzz of the productivity hacks, the feeling of being part of a secret online community chasing the next shortcut. So, tentatively, she changed one thing. She joined a real-world professional circle that met every other Tuesday at a coffee shop on Randolph Street. It was for marketers, but not for networking. It was for thinking out loud. The first time she went, her palms were sweaty. When it was her turn to talk about a challenge, she didn't present a slick solution. She said, I'm struggling with how to measure the real impact of brand awareness. I keep looking for a hack, but I think I need to just understand it better first. The silence that followed was different from the one in her apartment. It was thoughtful. Then a woman named Elena, who ran a small boutique agency, said, Oh man, I've been there. Let me tell you about the messy spreadsheet I built that finally made sense to me. It wasn't a perfect answer. It was a real one. That conversation, the smell of roasted coffee and the sound of clinking cups around them, gave Sarah more fuel than any webinar ever had. She was no longer a lone climber. She was in a base camp, sharing maps with others. Week by week, the timeline of her integrity log told the true story. The sentences grew more specific, less about struggle and more about tiny, solid discoveries. November 5th, figured out the data discrepancy by walking through it on the whiteboard. November 12th, explained the quarterly strategy to the new intern using just my notes from my walk. The transformation wasn't a sudden magical glow-up. It was a time lapse of a plant growing. Slow, almost invisible day to day, but undeniable over weeks. The hollow feeling in her stomach was gone, replaced by a reliable, low hum of capability. She wasn't faster, but she was becoming startlingly clear. A 2025 analysis in Harvard Business Review put data to this feeling. They found professionals who practiced this kind of focused burst work reported 70% fewer instances of that productivity shame, the gnawing guilt that you re-busy but not building anything. Even more telling, they made 40% fewer catastrophic errors. Why? Because when you build something brick by brick yourself, you know where the weak points are. You don't hand over a beautiful, mysterious black box that might collapse. Sarah still used technology. But now, it was a tool she used, not a crutch that used her. She'd do her messy thinking on paper, her focused bursts on a clean screen, her learning from a physical book, and her connecting on a walk. The system was a blend of the analog and digital, with her hands, her feet, her voice firmly in the center. She looked around one afternoon. The dead succulent was gone. In its place on the windowsill was a new, small, green spider plant she'd picked up at the farmer's market. It was thriving. The metaphor was almost too obvious, but it made her smile. She had built a new rhythm for her days. But a new, exciting fear was starting to whisper, this clarity, this solid ground. What could it actually build out in the real world? What happens when you stop just managing your to-do list and start trusting the mind that's growing behind it? The real change wasn't a promotion or a raise or a sudden burst of fame. It was quieter than that and much more powerful. It was a Tuesday in late November, just before Thanksgiving, and Sarah was in a quarterly planning meeting. Her manager, Mark, was projecting a complex graph on the screen, talking about lagging indicators and lead velocity. The room, a mix of in-person and floating heads on a monitor, had that glazed-over look. Mark paused. The data's clear, but I'm not sure why the conversion is stalling here. Any thoughts?